Okay, I think it's already recording. I can't see Roberto now. Here we are.
That's because my mic was disabled after you started.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem at all. No worries.
So now officially, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, good morning for those who are joining us from Brazil. Thank you very much again for being here today. Just let me say that this workshop is organized within the framework of the digital editing seminar of the textual criticism program of the University of Lisbon. Today, we will explore the process of publishing a digital edition using the edition visualization technology. We are delighted to be guided by Professor Roberto Rosselli Del Turco, the creator and PI of the project. Professor Del Turco is associate professor at the University of Turim, where he teaches Germanic philology, Old English language and literature, and digital philology. He has published extensively in the fields of digital humanities and Anglo-Saxon studies, and he's the editor and translator of the Old English poem The Battle of Maldon of 2009. He leads the digital Vercelli book, and in addition to being the creator and PI of EVT, he is co-principal investigator of the Leges Langobardorum project, and he's involved in several other projects. A warm welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, for accepting our invitation. And whenever you want, the floor is yours.
Thank you for this introduction, Elena. First of all, I'm going to copy an URL in the chat. While I'm talking, if you go to this page, you will see about, let me share the screen. Okay, you will see this page, and okay, is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And you are invited to download the Materiali zip archive, because this is what I will base my live demonstration afterwards. The main part, the first half of this presentation will be me speaking about EVT. Okay. And I hope it is not too boring for you, but you can interrupt me at any point if there is something which is not clear. This is not just a tool, this is a sort of adventure, a path into developing something useful for the purposes of digital philology. So this is born from my experience with a specific edition project, my first edition project, which is the digital Vercelli book edition project, which was started at about 2004, something like that. And I investigated in text representation as a first thing. And it was quite a longish process to understand how XML-TI works. But after this initial part, this initial moment of learning, I and my group, we started encoding all the text. And at about 2010, I could say, we were almost ready to publish our edition. The only problem was that, well, now we have a very rich ecosystem of tools for doing digital philology, both to prepare an edition and to publish it afterwards. But at that time, about 20 years ago, many tools were limited because they either were complicated to use, such as the exist.db. There was no front end at the time, or they were proprietary. I was offered a browsing tool used for another famous edition, which was unfortunately not available to be further developed. So it was a take it or leave it offer. Other tools such as DTI style sheets were at the time, they still are somehow limited. My initial goals were really basic in a way. So I wanted a viewer for manuscript images to be paired with the diplomatic transcription. And when I say to be paired, I mean to have image text linking line from of the manuscript to line of the text, multiple edition levels, and a text search feature. So nothing incredibly complicated. I also wanted it to be ready to be deployed, easy to be deployed on the web. So this is why we started exploring these hypothesis of a new tool written from scratch. At the time, I was teaching digital philology and text encoding at the University of Pisa. And I started with my students who, after a few iterations, came up with something actually usable. Not only usable, but actually good, so that we could expand on that. So the main features are those which are not going to change for any version of EVT are presented in the slide. So it is open source software. Anybody can use it free of charge. Actually, you can also modify the source code. We want to cover all the main uses for TI-based editions, that is digital facsimile, diplomatic and or interpretative editions, together with the manuscript images, critical editions, authorial philology editions is one of the latest developments, but you get the idea. Also, we wanted to be able to have some tools, for instance, for images, and tools to deal with text, mainly text search, but also an internal handling of named entities, so that they become a resource in any edition. Using web standards, this means that we want to be able to access our editions in the long term, which is why we decided for the client-only architecture. There is no server-side software. EVT runs on the client, that is on your computer, which means that an EVT edition is eternal at all the effects. Modular design, this is still one of the basic choices we did at the time, meaning that we can add new features by developing a new module, which then is implemented together with all the other parts. Okay, this makes EVT very flexible, very configurable, so that it can be adapted to many, many different purposes. So we wanted it to be easy to use for the editor, because we keep data and software strictly separated. You don't need the EVT until the moment you are finished with the text encoding. You can decide which features are available very easily, because we have configuration parameters which are going to be used to that purpose. Automatic operation means that once you have put all the relevant data in the appropriate folders and written down your own configuration, EVT works almost like a sort of magical black box. the edition is produced automatically on the web. Client only, as I said, this is very important to make it easy to use and to, how can I say, eliminate the need for long-term maintenance. Again, if you comply with the current web standards, such as HTML5 and CSS, and just a tiny bit of JavaScript in the first version, but a lot more than that. But again, JavaScript, that is the language of the web, in the 2 and 3 versions. This means that you're going to be able to load an EVT-based edition at any time. We put also a special, how can I say, cure for the final product. I mean, the layout is quite clean. We tried to avoid some navigation hooks, which you can see in sophisticated editions. Navigation is very simple. At any time, you are able to go back to the home page, to the starting point, which means that users, normally do not have any problem in using one of the EVT-based editions. So I mentioned that there are more than one version. Actually, we have 3 versions of these. Only the first one is the, how can I say, the most complete one. This is what was developed with my students in Pisa, and actually it still works, meaning that if you only need a diplomatic edition with manuscript images, you could use EVT 1. Then we have EVT2, which is a complete reboot of the original source code. It is based on the AngularJS framework. And then the current version, which is based on Angular, simply Angular, is called EVT3. Why 3 versions? Why rewrite the code periodically? Believe me when I say that we do not want to do that, but the first move, the first source code move, was sort of forced, because we noticed that the XSLT style sheets, which are the basis of EVT1, sorry, they tend to become really complicated during our development. And this means that to add a new important feature, such as critical edition support, we were going to touch some really delicate points, meaning the code started to become really unstable. And then after we moved to EVT2, we noticed some efficiency problems, which Google, who are the main developer of AngularJS, noticed as well. They then improved AngularJS to the point that it became something completely different. So Angular is a completely different and incompatible framework than AngularJS. In 2020, about the time, we had to decide if we wanted to stay with an older and possibly no longer maintained, also under the security aspect, framework, or move everything to the newer and better Angular framework. Okay, so this is the initial version, which is based in a 2-phase approach. So first of all, we have an EVT builder. This is a chain of XSLT2 transformations, which take the TI code as input, and then create, and this is the second module, an EVT viewer, which is a web application based on HTML, CSS, and so on, to view the edition in a browser. So the result of the transformations are built and put together so that you have a proper web site. The features you will find in EVT 1 are, how can I say, quite good, even if they do not include the support for critical editions. So you have multiple edition labels, the handling of special characters, text image linking, so you can have hotspots and the like, and more. And the final version, which is 1.3, also has support for translations, for verses displayed as prose, and thanks to the Viscol plugin, you can also manage to view the quire structure of the manuscript. Okay, so these are a few examples. I will now go and have a look at one of these. So you will notice that this is quite a big manuscript, because you have 400 folios. This is a collection of legal acts. The first thing you see is the registro, that is the content of each document, and then you can access all documents, as you can see here, with named entity support, notes. You can highlight, for instance, people which are mentioned in the text. We also have, for instance, a support for the bibliography. So each link that you find in the text, in the notes, or in a named entity pop-up box, you will be taken to the bibliography, which is part of the project information. You can also browse lists on their own. So here you can see the list of people. We made it so that you can also use this as a navigation tool, because each entity which is mentioned in the text can be then navigated to, as you can see here. The desired target is highlighted in the text. Here you have the information, and you can go back to the list and look for something else. Of course, if you browse this edition, many of these people are just witnesses, which means we do not know anything about them. So as you can, except for cases such as this guy, Alberto Azzo II, and so on. So for some of these people, we have information, but for instance, Albertinus quondam Bonaiuti de Puleca, we don't know a thing about this guy. Okay, so people, places, families, organizations, people in the mains, for instance, Dani or Franks, and so on. And also, I didn't mention this, but you also have support for a glossary inside the text. Okay, and again, you can look, you can browse the glossary, but you will also find the information straight in the text. So as you can see, as I told you, this is this still is the how can I say, the most complete version. It is limited in the sense that you don't have support for critical editions, but it does really well the task of presenting the diplomatic editions, diplomatic interpretative editions. This is another aspect. You can have more than one edition label, not for the Codice per Lavicino, but you could have that, for instance, in the digital Rosselli book. Okay, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. I'm here to answer those. Okay, and this is just to sum up the problems we faced. The code base became complicated. Also remember that at the beginning I had mainly students doing the work. So I had new students coming and having a look at the existing code base. Sometimes that was difficult because not all people leave comments to explain how the code works. Also, the code base had become somehow unstable and adding a really big feature such as critical edition support was going to be problematic. So this is why we decided to move to a completely different approach. This one doesn't use the first phase, the building phase, anymore. So we don't have XSLT transformations. The TI XML documents are passed directly inside EVT. The XML data is transformed into a JSON model, which is then rendered as HTML in a very fast and effective way. So this is based on the model view controller approach, which is one of the most interesting and flexible architecture in software development. So this is to explain how it works. So we have all the edition data you can see here on the left. You can then copy them into the appropriate folders inside an EVT installation. The textual data is transformed into JSON, and then the viewer module takes the JSON, takes all the links to the images, and produces something like this. Okay, so the final edition is done, is produced on the fly when you open the website. I can show you that immediately. So for instance, this is a short demo about EVT2. Okay. As you can see here, you have, just like in EVT1, the same layout, the same basic layout hasn't changed. We have a much better image viewer, which is OpenSeaDragon in EVT2. And here I can show all that I wanted for the digital Rosselli book. For instance, the fact that I have two edition labels, okay, so diplomatic and interpretative. What is the difference? Okay, I guess not many people here know about Old English, but I think it is really easy to read here two words, meglie, mette, okay? And you can see them in the diplomatic version, but if I leave the mouse cursor on meglie, mette, the actually correct standard orthographic interpretation is shown. Why? The Anglo-Saxon scribe sometimes united things that shouldn't have been together and separated compound words which actually should have been all together. So here, meglie, mette actually is, they are two words, but it is me, personal pronoun, just like modern English me, and iemette, which is a verb. Okay, so you can see here the other version, and if I access to the interpretative level, I have a much more readable text because all the non-standard forms are corrected. All the abbreviations are expanded, as you can see here, okay, while in the diplomatic version you can see the word as it is with the macron sign over the last vowel. And I also have special characters, as you can see here. I hope the text is not too small. Okay, so for instance, we have the long S, the insular S, and so on, while in the interpretative level, we only have the standard traditional Latin S. Okay, so basically this means that I want to use the diplomatic version when I am learning about the document. Okay, to follow and to do this, I could use text image linking, as you can see here. Okay, so if I click on a line in the text, the corresponding line is highlighted in the document. This is very useful when I teach Old English to help people find the desired line immediately, and vice versa, of course. And we also have basic, really basic support for hotspots. For instance, here there is you can see here that there is an erasure in the text, and if you click on the highlighted box, you have an explanation of what happened. Okay, so basically here the scribe made a mess of what he wanted to write and then corrected it, deleting part of the word and adding an L here in this on the part of the word that he wanted to save. Okay, so this approach is also interesting, and we decided to do this this way because if we wanted to add support for another markup language, we could do that modifying the input parser modules, but the viewer would stay the same because it would rely on the JSON output. So this would simplify the implementation of a new feature aiming at supporting, for instance, tag ML. Okay, so I told you that we also wanted to do critical editions. The first version, the alpha version of EVT2, it was just supporting that, nothing more, but it already was complete in a way because we supported all the main elements in the TI critical apparatus module. Okay, so we had support for the witness list, for the critical text, critical notes. We could already generate all the witnesses text using the same method used to generate the critical text. We already had a dynamic critical apparatus, and we used filters. We introduced support for a number of filters to be applied on variants to make research on the variants more easy. Okay, so these are just a few screenshots. I will show you the functioning of the critical edition in EVT2 later on, because that's the main purpose of the practical part. So I will skip this. And I'll move a little faster because this is an interesting decision we had. As you can see here, the critical box, where you can see an apparatus entry, is in line in the text. And we had a discussion about this. So it is all well and good to have an inline box when you are comparing the critical text in the collection view, for instance, just like in this screenshot, but it is less, can I say, optimal when you want to have a full apparatus for the critical text alone. So we decided to create a specific view where you can have the critical text on a side, and then the sort of traditional presentation of more than one apparatus layer on the other side. Okay, and then besides that, more interesting features such as the handling of variants in groups, support for multiple recensions of the same work, and so on. So this is, you could say, this is a very traditional approach. But we noticed that this is useful for many people because a traditional, among quotes, scholar will be, how can I say, he will relate to this approach really fast because it is very similar to what you have on printed critical editions. And it still is a dynamic tool because on the apparatus frame you can have critical apparatus, but also sources and analogs in these tabs, as you can see here. Okay, so I think this is a user interface design decision which, in the end, is very useful for all our EVT users. Okay, second beta. This is almost the definitive one when it comes to features. We recovered support for diplomatic editions and digital facsimiles. Okay, so basically what you can see here, it's what you already had in EVT1. We also experimented with 3D-Op, for instance, which is a viewer for 3D models, because I've been working on a project about an Anglo-Saxon cross, the Rathbone cross, where you have runes on one of the sides, and we wanted to be able to show that in connection to the transcripted text. Okay, more about that later, but basically this is how can I say, an expansion of what we had already in EVT1. Okay, so again, for instance, you will have noticed these are the miniatures of the edition, and this is, as you can see, the quire structure. Of course, since this is just a part of the manuscript, I don't have the images for all the folios, only for those which are shown. Okay, as you can see here. But this is interesting because it means you can represent the internal structure of any manuscript. We still have to recover this feature in EVT3, by the way. Okay, and more screenshot. This is another experiment. You can now pin apparatus entries and save them in this window so that you can go back and study them or just read them if you are interested in those specific entries. Support for named entities, so this is a sort of a advanced version because it is better handled than in EVT1, and digital facsimile and diplomatic transcription, just like we had in EVT1. So we have a few projects which have been published with EVT2, which is in a way interesting because I always sort of assumed that the beta label was going to scare people away, because in the world of software development, beta means something which is unfinished and possibly buggy, but we discovered that the EVT2 approach was really appreciated by scholars and researchers, so there are many more editions published with EVT2 than with EVT1. Sorry. So just a couple of examples. I will look at these three. Well, first of all, this is interesting because I told you about the OpenSeaDragon image viewer. Okay, this is a very powerful image viewer, which also supports, as you can see here, supports tiling, meaning that you can see here on the right, this is a roll, meaning that you have 19 parchment sheets that are sewn together to form the rotulo. This would be a really huge image to publish in itself, so just as an image, because it is, I think, about 56,000 pixels high, so quite a lot. So we decided to split it into small fragments, tiles. When you focus on a specific point and zoom in on that point, the relevant tiles are loaded so that you are looking at a very high resolution version. Okay, and this has been, even if it is quite short, this has been a very difficult text to encode, because it is really, really full of abbreviations. We had to really create many entities to render these abbreviations with special characters. This is another interesting case. Well, EVT2, for the reason I explained, it started as a critical edition viewer. Then we added diplomatic and interpretative edition support. But these two features were meant to stay apart, while quite a few scholars are interested in publishing a critical edition together with the digital facsimile and the interpretative edition of one of the most important witnesses. So this is an interesting case, because here Fulvio Delle Donne, our colleague, he managed to have both a critical edition and an interpretative edition, of course, with some limitation, because those are two, I'm going to say, two different kinds of published editions. So, for instance, the main difference is that diplomatic or interpretative edition is paginated. You can see here you have an HTML page for each parchment folio, while the critical edition has been conceived to be on one big page if it is only one document. Of course, you can navigate this page, but you lose the text image linking, as you can see here. So an interesting compromise, but one which still has some limitations. Last example, the Vasto project. This is interesting because, again, we didn't think about authorial philology features. Okay, so this is about the Storia Fiorentina by Benedetto Varchi. This is an interesting text, and the editors of the project, they tried both to render all the sequences of corrections done by the author. So this is a sort of genetic edition, as you can see here. And since EVT2 doesn't support marginalia, they created these boxes using just CSS. In fact, as I mentioned, you can use a CSS to customize some of EVT features. Okay, so back to the presentation. Any questions so far? Is everything reasonably clear? I sure hope so.
Yes, yes.
Okay, And then the version we are working upon now. So this is basically exactly the same slide as for EVT2. So the approach is exactly the same. The model view controller approach remains because we found it to be viable and very effective. Of course, this was a tremendous blow to the project because it caused a delay of 2-3 years in the development of the new version. So the first goal was to reach feature parity at least for the main features. That means basic critical edition support, basic digital facsimile and diplomatic edition support with multiple edition levels, support for named entities, and if possible, a better text engine than search engine than EVT2. We also planned new features because the new architecture allowed us to take into consideration these new features, which have been in a good part implemented and will be soon available in a second beta version for EVT3. At the moment, we have a first beta which is already usable, at least for experimenting purposes. So one of the new features is support for the double endpoint attachment method for critical editions. This is a very important improvement. Maybe you don't know about DEPA, which is short for double endpoint attachment by TI. You will learn about it soon, because the main limitation of the parallel segmentation method, which is what 80% of people use, is that you cannot have overlapping variants. So we took advantage of this effort to implement DEPA to improve the handling of complex witness families, and to handle the witness list in an improved way in the collection view. So now we are working on refining these features, which are quite important for the Legacy Langobardorum project, because the final goal of this project is to produce an integrated edition of the Edictum Rotary, which wouldn't be possible without support for all these features. Okay, just a few words about this, because we will see later. So basically, as you possibly know, there are 3 methods to attach the critical apparatus to the critical text in a TI based edition. The DEPA double endpoint attached is the most powerful, but it is very cumbersome because you have to look at 2 different places at the same time. And first of all, you have to add all the anchor elements to put some how can I say, milestones in the text, so that you can say, from this point to this point, I have a variant. Okay, so just to show you an example, here you have anchors. These are empty elements, as you can see, so they cause no problem whatsoever when it comes to overlapping markup. Okay, and the apparatus is then in standoff format, and basically works like this. You say, okay, from this point to this point, I have a variant. Here I will propose a sort of a basic version of the critical text, and here are all the variants in, as you can see, many different witnesses. Okay. We experimented with a different method, which is working fine, actually. That is, instead of adding all these new elements to the text, adding a W, meaning a word, TI element to each word in the text, adding to each word an XML ID. Both these operations can be done automatically, so with very little effort by the editor. And at this point, in the apparatus, you just need to say, okay, from this word to this other word. And as you can see, it is much more, how can I say, intuitive when compared to the anchor-based method. Sorry. Okay, so this is the current DEPA prototype. As you can see, the approach and also the handling of the apparatus frame is always the same. You are adding support for notes so that you can have a separate tab for notes. The developers also added this check, which actually should be removed before publishing the final version. This is just, as I told you, we are still in beta, so this is, how can I say, understandable. In fact, there are sometimes mistakes which are very, very difficult to catch, okay? For instance, what if you are going to refer to the wrong ID in the text? This is not, how can I say, a syntactic error, okay? So as you can see here, the editor was thinking of look 0609, but he got it wrong, and he typed 99, which is not an existing ID. So this could cause problems in the visualization, and EVT caught that before the edition is published. Okay, and here you can see the new collation view. Again, this is a replica. Still has to be adapted. As you can see here, there is a difference. We use the old method of highlighting with colors in the witness text, as you can see here. And we are still discussing about the best way to present apparatus entries in the critical text, because some of our, how can I say, testers told us that a critical text with all these alphabetical exponents is quite hard to read. So we are thinking to hide all of this at first glance when you open the edition, to make it available on demand, so that you click on a button and you will get all the exponents, and then you're going to be able to click on the word and to show the critical apparatus entry. And this is the improved way to present witness families. Okay, this edition, the Lucullus edition, is interesting because it has a very, very complex list width. So you have not only families, you can have different hands treated as different witnesses within the list width, and so on. Okay, another improvement, something we are experimenting. I'm now going to present you with features that are complete or almost complete, but in any case usable, albeit to get an idea of how they work. This is one of the almost complete features. I don't know if you have ever published a digital edition. You may have noticed that if you use a tool such as EVT or TI Publisher or other tools, often the tool has hard-coded in itself the editorial conventions. So for instance, the way you are going to show there is a lacuna in the text, or an integration. Sometimes you use square brackets, sometimes you use angular brackets, sometimes they have opposite meanings depending on the specific philological tradition you're dealing with. Okay, so we decided that the editor should be able to determine which phenomena is going to be highlighted and explained using which convention. And this is already available in EVT 3. So for instance, this is the text. Okay, so in the text, I have a choice element, the original non-standard orthographic word, okay, and the normalization of that, adding something in the text. Okay, so for instance, here I have addition above. Okay, so this add element can be dealt with in two different way. In the diplomatic layout, I want to have a color highlighting, okay, and a specific position of the added text. In the interpretative edition level, I just want to have, for instance, the slash before and after, mimicking what you would find in a printed edition. I hope that was clear enough. If not, this is the final result of these instructions. So here you have the diplomatic edition, so color highlighting, as you can see here, okay? And the L, which has been added above, because you can also specify, as you can see here, that this is the add element with a place attribute with an above value, okay? So the result is that this L is going to be printed on screen in a higher position than the baseline for the rest of the text. In the interpretative edition, you decide that you have slashes before and after the L, and this is exactly what you would possibly find in a printed edition. Okay, then we worked on genetic criticism. This is already working. It has already been implemented. It has to be refined, of course, in the current version. So this has been to support the SABA 1919 project with the goal of developing an innovative digital edition of the Canzoniere 1921. What did we do? You know, you can have two different approaches, and we decided to have both of them, both the digital documentary approach, which, for instance, has been adopted by Elena Pirazzo in the Proust prototype, and a more traditional critical apparatus-based approach. Both of them are going to rely on a recording on the phases which have been adopted by, which happen in the text because of the different moments the author comes back to the text and decides to modify some specific part of the text. Okay. So this is to take just an example from the Canzoniere. Here we start from the bottom, you could say, so verset 1, the first reading, the first variant. So we point to the strato 2, layer 2, meaning that what you have in strato 0, layer 0, the initial draft, this is what you can already find in the initial draft of the poem. Then in layer 2, this has been deleted and something has been added, you can see here, okay? And then you have lem, what we consider to be the critical text for this poem, the final version as approved by the author. Okay. Again, we did some user design work, user interface design. So this is these are basically the initial drawings I did to propose a version of the critical apparatus box, but something which would work with authorial editions. And this is the final result. Okay, this is a static image, but I can show you live. Okay, let's go to that page. Okay. So, for instance, here, you notice there is a selector. Strato 0 is the initial draft, and this is our starting point. Then we have, as you can see here, 5 phases, 5 moments when the poet comes to the manuscript and decides to change the text of the poem. Fortunately, these are easily recognizable in the text because Saba used different colors for each one, perhaps not intentionally, but this is the final result. Only sometimes it is difficult to read under the deleted text, so this has been the edition has been done by experts. I can click on the different layers, and if I get to the final one, I am presented with all the changes applied to the poem. To make things more clear, I can hide the deletion so that I can see the changes straight without seeing what has been deleted. So, for instance, here I can see that Pensieroso has been deleted. Grave in volto is what it is still readable in the document, and this is what I'm going to use for the critical edition of the text. Like in all other cases, that is, even for other different critical standard critical editions, we let the final user to browse the XML encoding to understand what is going on here. Okay, I'll go fast here. This is just to say that we are also studying, this is why I mentioned you that we are going to change the way the critical text is presented to the user, because we noticed that, for instance, the light blue and blue schemas are not that easy. Actually, they told me they are the worst colors for people suffering from some impairments, visual impairments. So we started a new line of research about improving the final edition on the side of accessibility. We adopted the WCAG Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And the first thing we did is to use a browser extension to see which are the critical points. And then, as you can see here, the color palette has been changed to improve that, so that it is easier on the eyes of the readers. Okay, I'll skip this part because we don't have that much time. Okay, so new features which are going to be refined. These are new views in EVT. So, for instance, image means meaning that you could have a manuscript scan. You could also have a different image, a different version of the same manuscript folio, perhaps one which has been restored either virtually or physically, so that you may want to confront those. and also the image-only view. If you have, for instance, double-sided images and you only want to browse the digital facsimile or even single images, like in this case. We are working on glossary support. We already have what you can see here on the right. This is just, as you can see, really a preliminary result, because in my mock-up here, you can see that the glossary is going to be presented using tabs, so that you have description, allographs, etymology, bibliography, occurrences, and finally the XML content for this glossary entry. Okay, this is another important step, which you will find in the second beta. In the current versions of EVT3, we have multiple configuration files. We are going to join all of them and then to have only one file, which will be in another format, YAML, because JSON doesn't allow you to have comments. So we will add comments so that you can have a first indication about the meaning of each configuration parameter. Okay, everything clear so far? Can I indulge with a few minutes more? This is a feature I mentioned about the Leges Langobardorum project. This is very important because at the present moment, TI lets you generate all witnesses starting from one TI document for critical editions, okay? But what if, just like in the Leges project, you have both separate transcriptions and you want to also have virtual witnesses, okay? So you may want to have the actual transcription you did integrated with the critical edition. Basically, this means that you want to be able to go from the critical text to the transcription, from the transcription to the image, and check on the image if available, and then all the way back. Okay, so this is quite, can I say, a problem, because TI doesn't allow you to do that, or better, EVT2 couldn't let you do that. So we had to devise a way to handle the third case, that is a mix of witnesses automatically generated and available as separate transcriptions. Which is, how can I say, not a big problem on a design level, but it has been quite complicated to implement into EVT3, because you have to let a lot of communication among the different versions work. So this is the final result. So as you can see here, you could say this is just a synoptic edition. It is, but the first text could be the critical version. So at the moment, we have a linking between the critical text, and these two are the different witnesses. This is the witness from Ivrea, and this is the witness from Vercelli, linked to the critical text. Okay, and in fact, as you can see here, you have a much better view of the text, because you have all the transcriptional markup, which is going to be handled by EVT, as I've shown you for diplomatic editions. Okay, so I am at the end of the presentation. So the current problems we have is that we have so many features under development that they are all developed on separate branches by default. And besides that, we have a new XML parser being developed by Silent Wave, which is our partner and the main developer of EVT at the moment. So this means that when you try to merge all the different features together, okay, so you have the branches, you want to unify all the features and put them into the development main branch, some problems may arise, which is why we're late with the beta 2 version. But in the end, after you solve these problems, you're going to get a new improved version with all the features that have been developed. So what we've done so far is to merge all these features, okay, and also the support for glossaries and dictionaries. The second step has been to improve, refine a bit support for digital facsimile and diplomatic editions. Third step, support for synoptic editions and the double endpoint attached method, so that we could also implement support for the integrated edition, which is the one I've shown. So this is what happened during the first half of this year. And we are going to publish the beta 2 at the end of the month or beginning of July. During the latter half of 2026, we're going to work toward a stable 1.0 release. So the first important step, and this also promises to break a lot of stuff in the current code, will be to update the Angular framework, because we are quite late. We are based on version 13th of Angular, but they are now at version 19th or something like that, and also merge that with the new parser. This is really important because both the new parser and the up-to-date Angular versions will allow us to be much faster in parsing and publishing the data. Then the plan is just to refine the existing features. This is already quite a big job, believe me. And if possible, to introduce a new text search engine and possibly an advanced TI documents query facility. So the goal is to arrive at 1.0, the first stable release, the first one without the beta label, to be published at the end of this year, or if later, at the beginning of 2027. Okay, and this is basically the current roadmap. Okay, the current team is shown here. As I told you, Silent Wave is currently our partner, the main developer, and these are just a few bibliographic references if you want to know more about, especially this article. The 2019 one is a sort of history of EVT up to that point, and it is interesting because I go into detail about what happened with Angular and with the XSLT framework. Okay, thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this path through the story of EVT. I think I can say that for everybody who has been listening to us, it's been very, very interesting. And I can open we can open the for questions to the public, maybe. I have a few, but yes, please. João. We cannot hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It was actually awesome to see a very long project being shown to the public, and all the beta versions and all the future possibilities of doing this. I do have a specific question about extracting the critical edition analysis within the EVT project. So you've shown the SAB 1999, I think. And my question is, does the user in the next future will have the possibility to extract the entire file to a TXT file and then proceed to carry out with other textual analysis? Or knowing all the documentation that is available in the project, that will be a massive future project to do. Because only in the document that I've seen in the SABI 99, it was almost 200 pages. So carrying that thing into a TXT file can be quite a challenge. And my second question is, in the last slide that you've shown, you've talked about using or trying to build a text engine kind of software within the project. Can you talk a bit more about that? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not sure I have fully understood both of your questions, sorry. So the first one was if the user can use, I don't know, analysis tools on, or no, you meant something else.
My question was about if the user will have the possibility of downloading the critical edition analysis and then extracting that file as a TXT file.
Oh, okay. Well, you can, that depends on what the editor decides, but usually you can make any EVT-based edition available for download. Okay, so you can, well, let me open the sub edition again. Okay, you don't have it here, but you can have a download. And we also plan to add a, how can I say, a multi-file download option, meaning that if the editor prepares a PDF version of the edition, or a simple text file of the edition, it will be very easy to download those from the menu. Okay, so it really depends on what the editor decides to make freely downloadable from the user. Right. And the second question was about?
It was about the text engine that it's included in the future projects analysis.
Okay, that's that would require a long question because we have two tasks to can I say make available for the final user. The first one is a simple search engine. Okay, if you open any EVT2 edition, you may have noticed that you have a create index. Okay. And then you can do a search on the text, okay? Okay, which I'm not finding right now, but anyway. Which means that this is a really, really basic search engine, and also we couldn't make it available without asking the user to do this simple operation. Okay, so we want to be able to go and say, okay, when the edition is loaded, you can also do text searches immediately, which is the simpler task. Then you may be interested in doing more with text. For instance, there's been a researcher in Siena who's been working on documents from the about 13th century, 14th century in Siena, by merchants who were buying, for instance, silk from Indies and so on. And he told me something like, okay, this is all very interesting, but I can only search text. simple text, so I can search a word. What if I would like to know how many merchants bought silk starting from 1320 to 1330? How many of these people had their own storehouses, and how many of them employed women in their shops? Okay, because this is all information you can add to your edition, because we support named entities. Okay, so for instance, I could go and show you a demo of the codice per la vicino. And here you have lots of different informations, okay, which you could put together to do cross searches. Okay, so who did what at a certain time? This is why we added support for the list event list event in TI. So TI has these specific lists about people, about places, organizations, and so on. One of these lists is the list event, where you can say, okay, at this point in time, this happened, and add a short description, or going more elaborate and even use, how can I say, a list relation to say this event is related to this other event. This person is related to this other person, and so on. Okay, so you can see this is a sort of a poor man version of an ontology, because basically you can create a triple. Not only that, you can have now what is called RDFA into TI, because you have, it's already available, an experimental version of TI using RDFA. That is the possibility to have RDF relationships to create triples available as attributes into TI documents. Okay, so this is all to say that you can have many information in a TI document, which would be interesting to somehow parse, interpret, and process to answer a very specific query. We're going to work on that, but this is for the after 1.0 stable version, because we actually included this in grant request, because I see this as a very interesting endeavor, and something that would transform an edition into a sort of knowledge base, without the need of creating complex RDF-based ontologies, and then using server-side software to do Sparkle searches and so on. So basically, you would have a new module, a JavaScript module, to do searches, cross searches within TI elements. I hope this answered your question.
Okay, thank you very much to both of you. Does anybody have another question? I do have one, actually. I mean, actually 2 or 3, but I'm going to try to focus. So just one curiosity, in one of your slides, I saw that, I can't remember whether in EVT 1 or 2, you were also doing parallel research on, for example, printing from TI standards. is this project is this project ended as how it is?
You mean to derive printable files,
Yes.
PDF files from TI markup?
Yeah.
No, it is not ended, but I put it on hold because the Silent Wave CEO told me that they are working for something similar. They're working on an authoring system called Digital Philology for Dummies. And
okay, great. I love it. I want it.
It is still in closed beta, but you can ask if you want to be included in the beta. And this is, by the way, I skipped the part where I talk about EVT as a service, but this is where they use it. Because as you can see, there is a view in EVT button, meaning that you basically can edit your edition. So for instance, at the moment, you can make a transcription. And then you can, don't look at this because this is my, how can I say, awful experimentation with this tool. But then when you're done with the, when you're satisfied with your work, you could have a look at it into the into EVT straight. Of course, this is going to need refinement because you need specific, at least generic diplomatic edition configuration files. At the moment, everything is loaded without a specific configuration file. Okay, so they are going. He told me that they want to be able to, since they're working on TI files, as something which is derived from a relational database. So basically, you can have a look at everything, but what you see here, and you can see maybe what you see here, you see TI code, but everything is saved as text in this relational database, and then it is extracted, and you can save it as TI. So using the same principle of transformations, they want to create a PDF file. Okay.
Right.
If you are interested in this, I can tell you more and put you in contact with the.
Oh yes.
I know they got excellent results with this project, because digital philology is also a collaborative tool. And so they managed to have people knowing almost nothing about semantic encoding and TI, starting learning about it and doing the encoding using the authoring front end, and then putting everything together for the final result.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I also have another question, actually, and this is like a personal curiosity. We were talking about that informally before the beginning of the session, but you showed that in EVT3 you have the possibility of seeing all the phases, the writing phases, and you mentioned that some segments were heavily cancelled. Did you have any illegible word? If yes, if so, how did you? How EVT deals with illegible segments? How they're treated?
Yeah, keep in mind that EVT takes a TI as input. So the correct question would be, how does a TI deal with illegible text? Okay, we go through TI for everything. and we try not to modify anything at all. So we try not to be prescriptive, saying, okay, if you want it to work with EVT, you have to do this. Okay, we try to support with, of course, the limits of the many different solutions available in TI markup. So I didn't do the transcription, as I told you, but it is fairly simple in the sense that they use gap, the gap element for things which are really unreadable. But this is really a rare case because the text is known. People manage to read what is shown here. So basically, you have a sequence of subst elements. First the deletion and then the addition of other text. Okay. So this has been checked by some Saba scholars who verified what is actually readable or not.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't know whether anyone has other questions.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I can move to the next slide set. Do you want to take a break?
I'm personally okay. I don't know about the others.
Also, there will be a live demo, so you can. Okay, I think you can follow that really easily because it's going to be fast and painless, I hope. Okay, this is just to show. I do not assume you're going to learn critical editions and TI because of what I'm going to tell you now. But here, okay, so the main goal of digital philology is the same as the general goal of textual criticism, to produce a reliable text, independent from language, age, tradition, and so on. And for critical editions, this means that we have to transform what is already in a very conventional and formalized language, that is the critical apparatus notes, to translate them in a formal language so that it can be passed and interpreted by EVT. And the language is, as I have assumed from the beginning, is TI XML. Okay, so I'm going to skip this part. We're going to use to have a look at the text critical apparatus module. Okay, and basically you have to learn the basics of this module. You will do that really fast because you have just a few essential elements. So first of all, you have elements to encode the witness information, and then the app element for apparatus entries. Within app, you have lem for the critical text and reading for all the variants that have been discarded. This is skipping the methods to link variants, the apparatus entries to the critical text. We'll see that later. Okay, so basically, this is a list of witnesses, literally, meaning that you have witness elements. The content is text, as you can see here. Okay, the really fundamental, essential part is that you remember to add an XML ID, an ID to each witness, using as a value the siglum for each witness. Okay, so this is really important that you remember to do this. So you can also have multiple lists with elements. They can also nest, so you can have one of them inside another and so on. For instance, for the Edictus Rotary, I have 3 lists: one for the complete witnesses, one for the fragmentary manuscripts, another one for for the 19th century and later printed editions. But this is just so that I can organize my work. Also, you can use elements from the manuscript description module if you include that into your schema. For instance, this part, it is really well served by the manuscript identifier element, because you can see here the basic information, what we have here. So the place where the manuscript is, the institution preserved in the manuscript, the siglum of the manuscript, and the page range of the text in the manuscript. You can have all of these included in the manuscript identifier. And also information about hands in the descripted witnesses. Okay, back to the elements. These go into the text in the parallel segmentation method. So you have up. Within up, you have lem for the critical text, and one or more readings, meaning reading elements for all variants which have been discarded but belong to the textual tradition. Note that you can also have attributes allowing you to further research the reading type, cause, and the correct sequence of variants. Further elements, but these are the most important ones. You can have a reading group to group readings, and then note for a critical note, because we're going to produce is really as synthetic as a normal critical apparatus. But if you want, you can be more discursive and include longish notes before closing the app. Okay, just I use this for my students, so please forgive me. This is just to remind you that, as you can see here, this is really a synthetic way to express an apparatus entry. So this means at line 780, I have add in the critical text, but witness Q1 presents an A variant that corresponds to this add. Okay, so what do we do to transform that into a formal language? Let's go to line 802. We have over relinquebant excluse tempore verno. Okay, in the apparatus I have 3 entries for this verse. Over, we have ova in OFL and qua in QAB, and so on. Okay, so the first thing I do is to open an app here at the beginning of the verse. I will insert over the critical text into a lem element. I close the lem. I open a reading for the first variant, that is over, and then I use the width attribute to link it to O, F, and L. These are the values that I added to my witness elements using the XML ID attribute. And now you see why this is important, because this is a very simple and effective way to link this reading to these witnesses. Okay, I close this reading, and then I open the following one. I have another width attribute linking to Q, A, and B. Qua is the content of this reading. I close it, and then I can close my app. As you can see, this is quite simple, okay? And the same goes for the other 2 apparatus entries. Relinquebant, as you can see, this is a very similar but graphically different, perhaps an error by the scribe, form. So I have lem relinquebant, what I see in the critical text, and a reading for reliquebant, okay, which is preserved in O1 and Q. Excluse tempore, these 2 words have no variance, so they are just the same in my text as they are in the printed text. Then I have a variant for Verno. Okay, I open an app, Verno, here in Lem, and then a reading with a width linking to Q, no? Because Q preserves a different reading, a different Lezio, e Verno. Okay, everything clear? Clear enough, I hope. Okay, and then if you browse the slides, you can see you have an expansion, but the basic mechanism is the one I have presented to you. Let's have a look at, for instance, here you have a cause substitution. Here the scribe changed the original in using a different version of the original words, creaturas tuas instead of creature tue. Here you have the use of the type attribute to say, okay, these are substantive readings, meaning these are not simply orthographic variants, but these are different words. If we have a look at some real case example, again from Edictus Rotary, okay, so you see eduniare in the critical text with a W alphabetic exponent, okay? You go have a look at the apparatus, and Blume tells us, okay, we have eduniare, sic, in 1 and 12, okay? So I use a lem for 1 and 12 with the word eduniare. And then all the other versions of the text for 2, 3, 5, 8, 9, and so on. Aduniare, aidoniare, edoniare, and so on and so forth. Okay? So as you can see, it is really easy because here you just have to use wit to record the witness sigla, and as a content, you put the content of the apparatus entry, and then that's about it. Okay? So you can just record these versions. Okay, here we have a double apparatus entry, meaning I have a C, as you can see here, for autoconciliaverit, okay, entry, and Blume tells us 2 and 5, there is an omission, they don't have autoconciliaverit. And then D, as you can see here, this is about conciliaverit only, okay? For conciliaverit, I have 2 different variants. I have conciliaverit in 9, you can see here, it is type orthographic. This is medieval Latin, so conciliaverit with a B is not exactly a mistake, it's an acceptable alternative form for conciliaverit. And then 11 and 12 have conciliatus fuerit instead of conciliaverit. This is a substantive variant, and so I record it as such. And then reading with 2 and 5, explaining this is an omission, and in fact this is an empty element. There is no text, which is a very simple and elegant way to say, okay, here there is nothing in these witnesses. Okay, is this clear enough? Because I use this example to show that you can have a perfectly valid syntactically correct TI-XML document, but it can be wrong on the side of content. Can you spot what is wrong with this encoding? A little hint, I told you we have 2 apparatus entries, but how many app elements do we have?
Just 1.
Just 1. So as you can see, this is enough to say, okay, there is something wrong here. And in fact, I use this to show that you can nest apparatus entries within apparatus entries. In fact, if you start from the beginning and say, okay, I want to create an entry for out conciliaverit, you start with an app, you open your lem, and you have out. Okay? Then you have conciliaverit, but conciliaverit has a dedicated D apparatus entry. Okay? So you open another app inside the lem, you add a lem for conciliaverit. Now you can have the two readings we've seen before. You can close your app, you can close your lem, and at this point, the reading is both about out and conciliaverit, as was intended by Blume. Okay, I hope this is clear. Okay, no worries, because we're going to see how that works in any case. And actually, I think I can skip the rest of the slides, because as you can see, you can have also transcriptional markup in your critical edition. Okay, so add, place, margin. This is what I would find in a diplomatic edition. And a substitution, a subst makes it clear that this deleted text has been replaced by the added text. Okay, again, this is a transcriptional markup, and of course it is there if I decide that it's going to be there, because otherwise I could skip the transcription markup and I just could put the final version of what is in the manuscript. Okay, this is why having the transcription available as a separate document is particularly valuable, because you already have all this kind of information. Okay. Okay, so if you downloaded the Materiali archive, you should have it here. Okay. So what you see is, I hope it is readable enough. You can see a few folders. Okay. What we are going to do is to open, if you have installed Visual Studio Code, we are going to open this folder. So I go to the if you can see, Materiali folder, then I open EVT, okay, and at this point I can click on Select, okay. And this is what I see. Oops, sorry, I want to close the Copilot feature. Okay. So this is what you should be seeing. Is anyone trying to do what I'm doing now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So basically, you see the structure of the EVT folder. Okay. And as I told you at the beginning, you're going to use two folders, one for data, data, and the other one for configuration, config. Okay, so basically when this is a fresh installation of EVT on your computer, if you have installed, you should have two extensions. One is Live Server, very quick day, okay, and the other one, this is really important, is Scholarly XML by Raffaele Viviani. Okay, why? Because Scholarly XML allows you to validate your TI documents. Live Server adds this little button you can see here. You can click on Go Live, and what you see in the folder will be loaded into your default browser. Okay, so basically this means that you're going to browse to view the default edition which is available in EVT2, okay, which is the Avicenna Experimental Encoding in Latin. Okay, so now you can see what happens when you have a critical edition. For instance, you have the critical apparatus frame, which is synchronized with the apparatus entries, okay? You also have the sources and the analog passages which are highlighted this way in the text. Remember, this is not a full edition, this is just a sample, so it is a bit limited in what it can do. There are also some errors added by intentionally to test EVT2. Okay, but as you can see, this is already enough to understand what EVT does with a critical text. And remember when I told you that it is important to have the sigla as values for the witness elements, so that you can refer to those from reading elements. So if I click on one of these sigla, this is going to generate the text of the corresponding witness. So we moved from the reading text view, we moved automatically to the collation view. Okay, in this view, we have 1/4, sorry, 1/3 of the screen space of the window browser available for the critical text, and at least 1/4 for each witness. Okay, and this is how EVT2 deals with lacunas, as you can see here. Okay, this is perhaps a fragmentary witness or one which has a lacuna at the beginning. Okay. Now, what if I want to test other editions? So if we open the config folder, we can see several files. Of all these files, only config.json is the one used by EVT. Okay, so at the moment, what we are seeing has been decided by this configuration file. For instance, we do not have an image text view because it is not useful in a critical edition. I could make it available in any case if I save the config. The edition is reloaded automatically, and you can see here there is a new view, image text. Of course, there is no text, no image, sorry, so this is a bit useless. But this is interesting because it shows you that when you modify something, it could be the configuration file, it could also be the actual text of the edition, which you find here. Okay. So, for instance, I have impossibile est, okay? If I change this, intangible est, okay, the edition is reloaded, and as you can see here, the text has been updated. Okay, let's leave Avicenna alone. So what can we do here? How do I load? Because as you can see, these are the files. This is the one for Avicenna, which corresponds to the current edition being shown. What if I want to see, for instance, the pseudo edition? Okay, I open the pseudo edition and I choose Save As from the file menu. I save it as config.json. Of course, I receive a warning because this is an existing file. I do overwrite the current config.json, and as you can see, the edition is updated. Well, the browser updates the edition on the basis of the config.json. Okay? Same goes if I want to try, for instance, okay, let's try this because I mentioned okay, as I told you, this is an experiment, basically, but it works more than decently. On the narrow side of the Rathwell cross, we have runes. Okay, I can use artificial lighting to make them as visible as possible. Okay, but in any case, I have a transcription on the right in the textual frame. Okay, I can load another. For instance, one thing I forgot to say is that we try to do our best and have perfect compatibility between EVT versions. So if something works in EVT1, it should also work in EVT2 and EVT3. Just as a test, we got this text from the I believe from the late 90s, and it loads great into EVT2, as you can see here. Okay. Okay, and nominally I am at the end of the seminar, I think. Now, if you want, I can show you how to create an edition starting from scratch. Okay.
Yeah, I think this would be great for the listeners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to the Materiali folder. Okay. So if you open Critical Edition, the first folder, you will find a few samples. We'll use the last one. Okay. And we'll open the Start Here Critical Edition. Again, this is something I use with my students. So this is a TI document ready to be used to create a critical edition. Actually, as you can see here, I have a list width already semi-prepared. Okay. And this list width corresponds to this edition, the Sermo ad Leprosos by Jacques de Vitry. Okay, so normally I would ask people to do this starting from a very simple fact, that is to save the Start Here Critical Edition with a short name, such as de Vitry, for instance, so that we still have this Start Here and so on available for other essays. Okay, so as you can see, you have the front, something which precedes the text. There is material which is not going to be shown as the main text of the edition. Okay, so first of all, I have all the information I need here. This is a full conspectus siglorum, if you want. And I'm going to cheat because I can copy this straight from another file. Okay. And here, now, I have the full equivalent in TI format for the printed edition conspectus Siglo. Okay, so this is the first step. First of all, I prepare the list of witnesses. Then, in my critical edition folder, I have the text version, a very simple transcription of the text. So I can, for instance, here head stands for heading. That is okay. And then I can start copying text. This is my first paragraph. Okay. Note this is the default behavior by Visual Studio Code, but you just have to go to the View menu, choose the last item, word wrap, okay, and it will be formatted in a decent way. Okay, so first paragraph, I open another paragraph, text. And the third long paragraph I am going to put here. So the assumption here is that I'm going to create a digital version of the printed edition of Sermo Primo. Note that you can have multiple head elements in your text, okay, provided they are the first thing after you open a div. Div stands for text division, generic text division. So what do I do at this point? I go to the image, I have a look at the critical apparatus, and I notice that for the very first word, I have a variant, okay? A very simple shortcut. If I select text and then I press Ctrl E, you see there is this field up here. I can type the name of the element, which would be lem, okay, and it wraps my selected text. Do you see this wavy underlining in red? It means there is a mistake, okay? So code is going to catch all syntactical mistakes for us, which is great. These mistakes means that I cannot have lem alone in the text, okay? Lem must go inside an app element, okay? So what have I done? I've opened an app element, inside which I have a lem element which contains Sermo. What am I missing? I am missing a reading, okay? And the rejected variant in this case is exhortatio, okay? So I write exhortatio here. Okay, one last thing, which witness does preserve exhortatio? Well, first of all, I have to use with, and then I'm going to say, okay, hashtag, it's P3. P3 is the culprit. Okay, so this is a full apparatus entry, as you can see here, which is saying exactly what I see in the printed apparatus text. I go further in the text. I read alias in the critical text. The editor informs me that for alias we have add in G. I follow exactly the same method. So first of all, I use lem for alias. Then I put the lem inside an app. And then I add a reading with a width G. Okay, what's the content of this reading? It's add. Okay, so G reads exhortatio ad leprosos et ad infirmos instead of et alios infirmos. Okay? Line 2, capitolo quinto. You may notice that the critical text is different from what you read in the apparatus. Why? Because you have a normalization, basically, of the final text. Okay, so you start with a capital S. You normally use Roman numerals for numbers. So you have a V, for quinto. But actually, I think that the witnesses all had quinto extended version instead of the Roman numeral. Okay, so capitolo quinto. Now I have to decide, okay, I'm going to normalize the text or not. Well, the editor decided to normalize it, so I can follow the editor. Probably I should follow the editor. Okay. Okay. And then our reading. Okay. Oh, this is a case where the reading has been omitted in this case, 3 different witnesses, G, P1, and T. So how do I signal that there is no text? Well, first of all, just say G space P1 space and T. You always need the hashtag because this is just like the DOM model in HTML. This means you have to look for an element which has G as a value for its XML ID attribute. Okay, otherwise G without an hashtag might be the name of a file. Okay, so remember, you always want to use an hashtag. Okay, this is already okay. There is no content, as you can see here. It's an empty reading. But then I could make, I always prefer to make these more visible, making them empty elements. In an empty element, you have only one tag. Normally you have 2 tags. Okay, so for instance, in a lem, you have the opening tag, lem, and the closing tag with a slash before the name of the element. Okay, in an empty element, you have only one tag, the name of the element, and the closing sign, the slash, comes at the end. Okay? Okay, so again, remember, you have your editor doing the validation for you. So Scholarly XML is going to validate in the background, and you must check the status bar at the end of the page, as you can see here, because you always want to see XML is valid. Okay? It is very easy to produce invalid XML. For instance, in a div, you cannot have text directly inside the div. Okay? A div is a structural element. You can only have other elements inside, not text directly. But as I mentioned before, these are the best mistakes you can make because the editor is going to catch them. If you misinterpret the text or if you misread something in the text, your TI document may be absolutely a valid TI document, but it is also wrong in the sense that its content is wrong. And this is very important because it shows you that in semantic annotation, the semantic part is at least, but really more important than the technical, the annotation one. Okay, so the humanities, competencies, and skills are essential to have a good semantic annotation of your document. Okay, so let's say I have finished with my critical apparatus encoding. That's not true, but let's make it true. What do I do? If you notice, there is no DB3 configuration file. So I chose what could be a similar one, and in just one simple change, okay, first of all, save it as a config DB3. Okay. Okay, now I can change everything I want without damaging the sudo edition file. Okay. I'm pretty sure I had it saved, but okay, doesn't matter. Typos are not important. Okay, so the most important line is what you find at line 6. Okay, so data URL is the parameter where you specify where your TI XML document is. And as you can see, it is, this is the complete path starting from data. So data, text, DB3. Okay? And this is exactly what I write here. Then I could change the first line. Okay, but this is not essential. For the moment being, I can leave everything else as is. Now, if I save this as a config JSON, I will be seeing my edition and all the work I've done here. Okay, so for instance, Sermo, you may notice how the apparatus becomes automatically a +1 in EVT2, okay? And I think we will disable this in EVT3 because it can become a bit annoying with many witnesses. But here you can see that all other witnesses have Sermo. P3 has exhortatio. What happens if I click on P3? I open P3, okay, the witness is generated automatically, and here I can compare Sermo, exhortatio, and so on. At this point, I can continue working on my edition. For instance, let's say what sufferentiam, sufficientiam, line 3. Okay. Okay. Okay, again, I add a width. And the width is G again. Okay, when I save, perhaps you've noticed in background, the edition was reloaded, and now I have a sufficientiam apparatus entry, which I can browse again. And again, you have everything I've done is visible in the XML tab of the apparatus entry. Okay, this is very convenient because you can work on your edition, and each time you save it, you're going to have it reloaded so that you can check your work and you can proceed further. Okay, any questions? I hope it was clear enough. I'm sorry if I've been too hasty and too quick in showing things. Please do not hesitate to ask me for information.
It's great. Thank you so much for everything. I don't know if anyone has any question. No? Okay. Okay. I just have one very quick one before we end this session. I noticed that you put the list suite in the front. What if you put it in the TI header, actually? Because
you can do that.
In the source desk.
In the source desk. That's another classical place where you have a list width. And as you can see, it works all the same.
Okay.
This is one of the things that TI lets you do in different ways. So it is very, very difficult, believe me, to try to support every possible variable way that TI offers you. We try to support the most common methods. And in EVT3, I tried to have the specific location decoupled from the parsing. So for instance, you could have, I don't know, named entity list. You know, there is a new, well, relatively new element which is called standoff in TI, okay? Which is convenient because this is a very high level element, so you could have a standoff right here, okay? And I think I will use this because this is a very convenient place to put, for instance, all the named entities lists, okay? Because, for instance, in the Pelavicino, the lists are in the source desk, as you can see.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that correct? Yes. Well, of course, if TI allows you to do that, it is correct. It is part of the source. Well, that's debatable. So standoff would be a more clear, neutral place where to put this kind of information, in my opinion. Okay. So if you can do that, and it is equivalent to other classical places where people have them, that's well and good. I mean, it's going to be supported in any case.
And maybe just one last question for people who want to actually experiment and go farther this initial workshop. If anyone encounters a case which is not contemplated or like wants to alter the source code, how is it done? How does it work?
Okay. Well, first of all,
just for people who wants to.
First of all, you should proceed gradually. The first path is to have a look at the config file and see what configuration is going to work for you. Okay, yeah. Because we didn't have a precise look at that, but you have many options. These are described in the doc folder. You have a user manual. Okay. And here you have a decent explanation. If needed, I can send you the PDF files I use for my students, where all the parameters are explained in detail. Then another possibility is to use CSS, for instance. Okay, why? Because let me see this one. Okay, so this is the one I was telling you about. Because for elements which are not, and we are going to keep this, it is already there in EVT3. For elements which are not processed by EVT, you can add your own processing power using CSS. Okay, why? Everything which is TI, for instance, the TI head element, is transformed into a span element, a generic span, but one which has a class attribute, and as a value for the class has the name of the TI element. Okay, this means that you can use CSS to style these. I'm using style as a verb. To have styles for this specific element. Okay, and you can also do that selecting on the basis of attributes. So, for instance, supplied is the element you would use for integrations in the text. You can say, okay, I just want to treat supply text done by Silvia in a different way. You can do that because you can specify data resp Silvia. Okay, these are the simple CSS example rules you can write, and you can add them to the custom style CSS file and see how it goes. Okay, for instance, let's say I have this is in the slides. Let's say I have a Bible here. Okay. Which is a reference to the Bible. Okay. So basically, EVT doesn't know a thing about Bible. So it is presented as if it were part of the text. Okay, really, really ugly. Okay, but if I go and in the config folder, I have a custom style CSS with some examples already visible. If I go there and I change the file, adding these two simple, now that's hoping I didn't do anything wrong, okay, with the text. This is saying, okay, before each Bible, add a square bracket, open. After a Bible, add a square bracket, close. Okay? And so you have this, which is semi-bearable, but you could transform this into a side comment, as we've seen in the Vasto project. Okay? You just have to add the CSS code saying, okay, I want to see this on the side in a separate box from the main text. just like this, okay, which is even better if you want. And not only that, you could also add, for instance, EVT doesn't handle TI table elements, but you can use CSS, and as you can see, you can have a neatly formatted table inside your TI document. So second step is to see if CSS can be enough, okay? And then only as a last resort, you should have a look at the code. But I can tell you that the code is quite difficult to handle. You have to know how to program in JavaScript, how to program in Angular, and this is not something I
have an idea of it.
Okay, so as you can see, this is not really doable for the digital philologists such like myself or other people.
Well, thank you very, very, very much for everything. If there are not any more questions, I think, I mean, the time was flexible, but I guess it's good to have a pause now. So if everybody is okay with this, we can, and doesn't have any question, we can maybe say thanks again to Professor Roberto, and well, say goodbye. Well,
yeah,
okay.
very well.
Thank you very much, and bye-bye to everybody. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. See you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Bye-bye.